Hey guys, this video is for sex determination, so how we can figure out through Punnett squares when two parents have a child, if it's going to be a boy or a girl, as well as sex-linked traits, which we can track in sex chromosomes from females and males. All right, so we'll talk about carriers here in 1 second, but before we do, we just want to look at kind of the bare bones of sex chromosomes in a Punnett square. So for example, if we cross a male grizzly bear to a female grizzly bear, what is the probability of creating a female? So a big thing to know for this is that sex chromosomes for males have the chromosomes X, Y, and the females have the genotype of XX. Okay, so you got to make sure you know that. So if we just put those in our Punnett squares like we typically have, we can see XX and XY. It doesn't typically matter which side you put them on. I just put the males on the side just for consistency for my own sake, so when I do it, it kind of helps me do it. So anyway, you do that. You fill in the squares, XX, XX, XY, and XY. So if we can see here, we have a 2 out of 4 or 50% chance of getting a girl, as well as a 2 out of 4 chance or 50% of getting a boy for XY. Okay. So within these sex chromosomes, there are these traits. Now these traits only actually really exist on the X chromosome. And again, look at our females have 2 X chromosomes. The males have an X chromosome and a Y chromosome. The Y chromosome doesn't really carry a whole lot of traits. It's very small, doesn't do a whole lot. Okay, so when we do sex-linked traits, the Y chromosome does not have any alleles on it. So if we look at our first sex-linked trait, we want to say we have a student A, a male, that has a dad that has normal vision. I should say too, color blindness is an example of a trait that is sex-linked. It's found on the sex chromosome, and we will see here after a few examples if it's more prevalent in guys or girls. So student A has a dad that has normal vision, so let's just go highlight anything we might need. So he has the genotype X big B and Y, and a mom whose genotype is X big B, X little b. And notice it says a carrier for color blindness. Now we'll talk about a carrier here in 1 second. Let's go ahead and put in our genotypes. Is there a possibility that student A is colorblind himself? Okay, so let's see. Go ahead and put our genotypes in. And this is the same as a normal Punnett square, except we just include our X and Y chromosomes. So if we fill this in, this is X big B, X big B, X big B, Y, X little b, Y. And then this one is X big B, X little b. All right, so if we look at this, we can see it's the same as sex determination, right? So we have 2 possibilities for girls and 2 possibilities for boys. All right, so looking at this, the son, or if we just start including the genotypes, we have quite a bit. Right, we have X big B, X big B, or X big B, X little b, or X little b, X little b, or XY big B, or XY little b. So including all the females and guys, these are all of our options for phenotypes. The genotypic ratio, we have, if we just start from the top, X big B, we have 1 to 1 to 0 to X big B, Y to 1 to 1. All right, and that makes sense. We have 5 probabilities. We have 4 squares. Only 4 of them are going to show up. And then our phenotypes, we can have a girl with normal vision. we're going to have girl who's colorblind. Oops. And then we can have the same, but for boys. So boy with colorblind, or with normal vision, and then a boy who is colorblind. Okay, so we have all of our options, and the question, well, let's do the phenotypic ratio too. So phenotypic ratio, we have girl who can see normally, so that's 1, or we actually have 2 girls who can see normally, so 2 to 0, right, because there's no girls that are colorblind, versus a boy that can see normally, so there's 1 of them, and a boy that is colorblind. There is 1 of them. So if we put check marks, so we'll put a check mark next to if they are colorblind. If they're not colorblind, we'll put an X. So this top left one, this girl is not colorblind, right, because it has a dominant allele. This one is heterozygous, so again, normal vision. For the boy, has a dominant allele, so it is not, he's not colorblind. And then here we have a boy that has and expresses the recessive trait for colorblindness, so they would be colorblind. Okay. And if we're looking at this in terms of the question, it asks, there's a son who's a product of these 2 parents. What are the chances, or could he be colorblind? The answer is yes, he could be. 50% chance that he is. Right, because he could be either this phenotype or this phenotype. All right, so let's do one more. And before we get into that more, we want to go back to this carrier. So a carrier you'll see in word problems, and a carrier is a person who carries a gene but doesn't express it. And whenever you see a carrier in a word problem, you know it's always going to be a heterozygous female, because females have those 2 X chromosomes, so they can carry 2 traits. Guys can only carry 1 trait. So it's impossible for a guy to carry a sex-linked trait and not express it. Right? We just saw that in this example, right? Whatever allele they had, big B or little b, got expressed. Females, like if we look at this one in the top right, this would be considered a carrier because she's carrying the gene for color blindness, but she is still seeing normally. So with that in mind, we're going to go to our second example. So student B, a female, is colorblind. So X big B, X big B. I can just go write that in here. And marries a guy who's not. X big B, Y. Will any of their offspring be colorblind, carriers, or normal sighted? So our genotypes, well, let's figure out our, we can do X big B or X little b, or let's see, X big B, or X big B heterozygous, X little b. And then we can have our males. All right, so we have our 3 female options and our 2 male options. We'll look at the ratio here in a second, but you can either have boy who's normal vision versus colorblind, and then girl normal colorblind. All right, we go ahead and put our parent genotypes on the side. X little b. Actually, let's put the girls on top. X little b, and then X big B, Y. So with this, we can go ahead and fill out the square. And then we can see, okay, we have 2 girls and 2 boys, right? 2 girls are the top 2 squares, 2 boys are the bottom 2 squares. So the ratio, we have 0 homozygous dominant females. We have 2 heterozygous ones. 0 homozygous recessive. And then for the boys, we have 0 dominant and 2 recessive. Okay, so will any of their offspring be colorblind, carriers, or normal-sighted? So the number of colorblind individuals, we have 2. Right, we have this one and this one. Both sons would be 100% chance that they are colorblind. So we say 2. We could also make this a percentage, 2 out of 4, or 50%. If we're just talking about males, though, that male would have a 100% chance of being colorblind. The number of carriers, again, so we need to be heterozygous for dominant and recessive. So we have 2 for this. All right, carrier. And then normal-sighted, carriers are still normal-sighted, but with, well, actually we would consider them in this. So this would also be 2 out of 4, or 50%. Okay, so be careful when you're looking at carriers. Make sure you have the genes on the right chromosomes. Make sure you're not expressing any genes on the Y chromosome. And let me know if you have any questions. Bye, guys.